right, it's all about June 12th. In Nigeria, we have our own June 12th. Yes, they bust or another election. It's still in the heart of so many persons after 2 decades plus, you know. Yeah, 1993, so to speak. But for this time, we're focusing on what happened between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. That's the first of its kind, and it happened in June 12. 2 great nations meeting after throwing insults at each other, but were able to broker peace. With the big question now is it a graveyard peace or a lasting peace? With me in the studio, our political analyst, comes to local and international politics, is well grounded. Amen. Join me, welcome, Wifo Williams. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Will.
Appreciate your coming.
Good to be here once again.
All right, June 12 has come and gone.
Yes.
And right now, they've gone their own separate. We're talking about Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, the supreme ruler of North Korea. What's your take on the meeting generally?
Well, the world has been watching closely, and it's been good to know that finally we are having peace talks, at least amongst both parties. So that's a good step in itself. But then what analysts and those of us who are watching from the sidelines have been observing is the body language and the motives of these 2 leaders. I mean, some months ago here we were hearing talks of fire and fury, how North Korea will be wiped from the map if they continue their nuclear program. And Pyongyang went on, North Korea continued, Donald Trump will draw red lines and they will cross it. So the world was at the brink of a nuclear war. And anyone who has a good understanding of what a nuclear war is would be scared. So we are happy that at least for now there's been a first step towards the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, even if I would not stake my enthusiasm for what's to come out of that summit. Fair enough, both parties have sat down. I think North Korea has walked away with a lot of accolades from this, because right from time immemorial, North Korea has always wanted the attention of the world. They've always wanted to be recognized as a nuclear state, and that summit has unilaterally acknowledged that North Korea is a nuclear state and has to accept it, deal with it, and find a way to, yes, now denuclearize them. But then all of that, the term denuclearization now is subjective. North
Subjective
Korea,
how?
Yes, North Korea has its own definition of denuclearization. America has its own definition of what denuclearization is. America sees denuclearization as total, complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization, as removal of all nuclear weapons and everything that has to do with it from the Korean Peninsula. But then from the North Korean angle, they see denuclearization as total removal, including that of the US, which the US has on the axis of the South Korea. Everything has to leave the Korean Peninsula, which the US have been very adamant to carry out. And that's why talks have never really panned out over the years. For decades now, North Korea has been talking about denuclearization, and then they backtrack, go back, renege on that promise, and then go back to their nuclear program. And America has been left stunned time and time again by the steps North Korea always takes every time they make a commitment to denuclearization. So the only iota of hope here is that Kim Jong-un is a young leader in North Korea. He is schooled in Switzerland, he's schooled in the West. So we are hoping for a more open-minded leader, because his parents before him were more conservative. They were just, North Korea inclined and nothing else. So let's hope that, the leadership of Kim Jong-un makes a U-turn from what his fathers, did in the past. So we are still looking at it with a lot of skepticism. I won't throw in a lot of enthusiasm into.
All right. A lot of skepticism, not being enthusiastic. Now, both parties gave conditions.
Yes.
Like what you said, talking about denuclearization, everyone have their own definition of that term. Now, do you see North Korea really eliminating any form of nuclear material in the Northern Peninsula?
Yes.
I mean, total eradication.
I seriously doubt that. Yes, they may have showed a little commitment by destroying their nuclear site in Pyongyang. That sends some positive signals. But then these North Koreans, they've been players right from time. They know how to play their cards. And they've studied the US for a very long time. They have their eyes on the US media. They know exactly what's going on. They understand that, yes, they can invite the world press to come to Pyongyang, blow up the site. No one can really tell what other programs they may have running, because don't forget, North Korea has been a very secluded state for a long time. So not many things that are going on in there is known by the world for now. That's why a lot of pundits have been saying that where America missed it in this summit is that there is nothing that has to do with, certifiable, having to verify, that denuclearization process. You just said, okay, let's go back to the declaration we had before of 1985, where we said, okay, the Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. But there is nothing new that Kim Jong-un brought to the table that the world has not heard before. These guys have reneged on every nuclear deal they've reached with the world. And although they've suffered crippling sanctions from it, but these guys have been deterrent. They would rather their citizens starve. These leaders would rather their citizens starve than renege on a nuclear program, because they see it as their sole mode of survival. Because right now, the Americans have their THAAD system, they have their nuclear weapons there in South Korea. So the North Korea sees having a nuclear program as the only means of survival. And usually they use it as a bargaining chip to call attention to their situation. And that's what Kim Jong-un has been doing. So to me, the man he's in this for the long haul. He has been carrying out intercontinental ballistic missile tests. He has been carrying out hydrogen bomb tests. And every time the US sets, or Donald Trump sets a red line, this guy crosses it. So at the end of the day, okay, even last month, the Iran nuclear deal was reneged on by the United States. A deal that was worked on by Barack Obama, the then president of the United States, and the other allies in the West. If you were in Kim Jong-un's position, with all of the rhetoric that has been coming from Washington, I mean, you would be skeptical about giving away the only thing that seems to give you security in the region. Even if, yes, it is clear that America still has more nuclear might. But then, the man thinks that the only thing that even makes the world listen to North Korea is that nuclear program that they have going. Now, the declaration that was signed, or rather the communique that was signed by Trump and Kim Jong-un, had nothing to do with verifying and making sure that this denuclearization is ensured. But it was just another vague meeting with nothing concrete that the world can really hold on to and say, yes, this is something new. The only good thing about the summit is that they did not suspend sanctions on North Korea. So sanctions are still there. But then, even the allies are watching. China is watching, who is, by the way, America's strongest ally in that region, saddled with the responsibility of really meting out those sanctions on North Korea. But now you could see that since the summit, Kim Jong-un has been pandering to Xi Jinping of China. And all of a sudden, the man has become a statesman, a world statesman, by virtue of that summit. They've always wanted a meeting with the US. They've always wanted that attention. The reason why past US presidents would not do it is that when you do that, you are legitimizing these guys. You are giving them that status of a nuclear nation. And that's why they've been very skeptical, sending diplomats to do the talking pending when North Korea is really ready to sit on the table. But I think Donald Trump probably moved by the idea that the Nobel Peace Prize was around the corner. You could see how he was trying to get that summit on the road. Yes, fine, there was a time he cancelled the summit. But then even the letter he wrote was very unorthodox for somebody like Donald Trump. He was literally, asking Kim Jong-un to be more reasonable. And then Kim Jong-un responded and here we are, we had the summit, and all of its fallout.
All right, now let's take a look at the summit that June 12. I've seen many things were not really made open to journalists until after the summit. Now, for instance, like what you said, rightly said, the sanctions are still very much in play. Do you think that may tilt the reason of this young leader to say, look, since the sanctions are still very much on the ground, we just can't do what you ask us to do? Because that is one of the reasons why they choose to come to the table. Lift these biting sanctions from us.
Yes, I think the U.S. has been very smart in that regard for not lifting the sanctions because, like I said before, the U.S., diplomats in the U.S. have dealt with North Korea for a long time now. And everybody knows that trusting North Korea is at your own peril. So lifting sanctions would be way too early. In fact, America has given away too much concessions already because Trump had already said that they were going to stop the war games, which is a term, by the way, used by Pyongyang to describe the joint military drill between South Korea and the US. And these military drills have been engaged in by both countries to secure the peninsula, at least to send a warning signal to North Korea to be of good behavior, because they've always wanted to attack the South. So it's always been there as a reassurance for the allies in the region, including Japan. The only people who have been very, very discontented with that, with the presence of the US, there has always been China, who have always advocated for a freeze-for-freeze suspension of everything that has to do with joint military drill. But then it is to the best interest of South Korea and the other allies in the region that US continues those military drills. And now Donald Trump has already suspended those military drills. So a lot of allies in the region now are wondering what's going on. I hope we are still safe, because nobody trusts North Korea. You don't go into negotiations with them expecting them to live up to those terms that you've negotiated with them. So there is a lot of skepticism in the air, and we all would do ourselves a lot of good by not trusting North Korea. So that those sanctions should remain. They should show good faith and open up their country for certified, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization. So let's be able to confirm. Let there be a timeline that, okay, come so time of the year, we want the world media to come, we want inspectors to come and see exactly how we are going about this denuclearization. It's going to take some time. Look at how we are going to, give away our nuclear weapons, our intercontinental ballistic missiles, because that's the only way US allies in the region are going to feel safe. You don't lift those sanctions on North Korea until they've showed a lot of commitment, which I still think for now they are enjoying. They're having the blast.
You talked about
of
commitment.
a lifetime.
What are these commitments that you're really talking about? Say until they show a lot of commitment towards what?
Towards denuclearization. Fine, they've destroyed the nuclear site in Pyongyang.
Is that not enough commitment?
That is fine. We know that is just that is a nuclear site, but how do we know that there are not many more sites? North Korea has some good space, and they've been working on this nuclear program. They've kept the world out of that nuclear program for a long time. In fact, the CNN anchorman or correspondent rather that went there has never been there before. It was his first time there. So how do we know? How would the world now be sure that there are not many more sites like that? So, complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization opens up the country to inspectors, just like we had in the case of the Iran nuclear deal. Iranians opened up their country, inspectors were able to come from the IAEA to inspect, how they've been going about their own denuclearization program. So that's what we expect from North Korea. But I think Trump was too carried away by the optics of the event.
How was he carried away? Because he was so careful, dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Was he dotting the I's and crossing the T's? I wouldn't say he did that, because even when he was asked, what are the steps that are going to be taken towards denuclearization, he waved it aside and pivoted to other issues that were not as relevant as the world knowing the timeline it will take for this denuclearization to happen. Because you don't just say you are working towards something without clearly giving to the world or showing to the world that sign of commitment that you are ready to do this. Because what shows your commitment is having to open up your country and telling us exactly where the nukes are, telling us exactly what you intend to do at what time. So for now, it's just another vague meeting where two leaders just met and the world media gathered. Another charade. For now, there's not much that can be held on to other than what we've been hearing before. And North Korea, like I said, have always reneged on their agreements. From the 1985 Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons to 1992, when they also agreed to denuclearize, to 1994, year after year, they keep breaking their promises. So we can't anchor to what Donald Trump is saying, that the peace has been restored to the world. On what ground, on what terms?
On what ground and on what terms? Let's take a look at North Korean side. Let's take a look at the U.S. side. Conditions they're giving.
Yes.
Remove your troops from South Korea. All these war games should stop. Do you see U.S. dismantling the THAAD equipment? Do you see U.S. saying, boys, come back home. Let Korean Peninsula take care of itself? What then happens to Japan? Talking about the allies of the U.S. What about Guam? The list just goes on and on. Do you see the U.S. being able to fulfill that promise? Because it's like North Korea is like playing a card. Take off those things, take off your personnel, then we do this. That seems to be like holding U.S. in a very bad spot.
Well, Donald Trump on his own has been touted as the America First president, because he believes that America spends so much money outside their borders, and bringing back the troops, like he said in the summit, or the press conference after the summit, that he thinks that America's military drills is costing America so much money. And then he started using the terms of the North Koreans that it is provocative. Maybe he was trying to make Kim Jong-un feel good and live up to what they have agreed. But I think Donald Trump, giving his America First mantra, may actually do it. He may bring back the troops, which I also think would be a little bit too early, because even his Defense Secretary, James Mattis, had said before now, that was sometime in April, thereabout, that bringing back the troops from North Korea, from the demilitarized zone, is a no-no. Those are people who have understood North Korea over the years. He's been a war veteran. He understands the game. But what we have come to see from the U.S. president over and over again is that he gets too easily carried away by the panache of events, that he doesn't even consult with his advisors, he doesn't consult with his allies before making statements. And when words come out from the mouth of a U.S. president, people hold into those words. People say, okay, on so day you said this, why are you not living up to it? And this has strained the relationship of the U.S. with a lot of its allies. Even South Korea was left aghast when he said they were going to remove their U.S. troops from the demilitarized zone. So that has left a lot of allies wondering, what if North Koreans begin to act in bad faith? Do you bring back your soldiers? Which is also going to take a process. I mean, by then, what would be the fate of the allies in the region, especially South Korea, whom North Korea have constantly wanted to attack. And but China has always wanted America's presence to be reduced in the area. So that's a win-win for China. They've always wanted U.S. troops gone.
No. Before we go straight to China, let's take a look at the Korean Peninsula first.
Yes.
Now, you talked about the South not being so happy about the conditions given to the U.S. that should take the truth of South Korea.
Yes.
Do you think this will cause a strengthening relationship of South Korea and the U.S. if that deal is struck?
Yes, it would, by default. Because
a default how?
By default, because China wants to actually be the overriding power in that area. So China have always wanted America to scale back on its military presence in the area. Because South Korea, seeing that North Korea are allies with China, had to align with the US. So if it happens that, okay, finally there is denuclearization and there is peace, and both Koreans are united and they are living in peace and harmony, there is a strong likelihood that South Korea would want to align with China because they are their closest ally. So that definitely would reduce the ties between the US and South Korea. So, and that's what China has always wanted. China wants to be the overriding power in that area, but because of the tension between South and North Korea, America has hidden under that guise to remain in that area and they are now like the most powerful element in that region. So China, this whole summit has been a win-win for China because they've always wanted American presence to be reduced. So with this deal being struck, by default, South Korea would align with China because they are closer to them.
Now, if South Korea should align with China, do you see the Korean Peninsula becoming one? Because before the war, the Korean War, they're like, one indivisible entity before everybody started taking sides.
Well, the unification of Korea, in as much as, I think the person that is really, really enthusiastic about the unification has been Moon Jae-in. In fact, it was one of his electioneering promise to his people. He was going to unify North and South Korea, and that's why he has been in the middle of the negotiations. Even when talks were beginning to fall apart between America and North Korea, he went to the White House, spoke to Donald Trump, and then he went to Pyongyang. They had their own declaration, they signed agreements, and ever since then he has been monitoring the process very closely. So it's not to sound too pessimistic, it may be possible, but then there's a lot of bad blood between the North and the South. And I think it goes beyond just signing a document to restore the ties between North and South Korea, because what a lot of pundits have also seen is that there is a huge ideological difference between what the North believes and what the South believes.
But then
the Southerners are more liberal.
But then they have this belief why they were one. Hence, they're divided, and now there is a man also that is willing to bring them back together. I want to create another history, unification of the Korean Peninsula. The person that Moon Jae-in talking about, the president, so to speak, of the South. He's willing. He's ready.
He's willing. Even Kim Jong-un has showed his willingness for a united Korean Peninsula. In fact, he said, if I'm to quote him, that it pains his heart to even know that they have a time difference between them, a 30 minutes time difference between them. And to show good faith after the Panmunjom summit that was held in April 27 in the demilitarized zone, he asked that the clock in Pyongyang be wound 30 minutes ahead to meet with that of the South. It was a way of him showing, attempts to want to reunify the Korean Peninsula. Also, both sides have loudspeakers blaring, propaganda, music, and all that. Both parties have also scaled down on that. They've stopped the propaganda music. So I think both parties are ready. But then there is still, like I said, a lot of bad blood exists between
When
them.
we return after this break, we'll take a look at the bad blood, so to speak, and see the role of China, because if memory serves me correctly, before they went for that summit, there was a visit to China by the supreme leader of North Korea. Now, we're taking a look at the relationship between the North and the South Korea, them being able to come together. So there's a possibility after it have shown some, how will I put it now, goodwill towards each other, cleaning up the speakers, and of course winding up time to meet up with each other. Now, if there's unification, who stands to lose and who stands to gain?
Well, if there's a unification, I still think that North Korea would want, the problem has always been that North Korea has always wanted to, have everything their way. South Korea seeking, liberation from that oppression had to align with the West. So America helped to liberate them and all that. So, and the North Korea I have been observing, I don't think they are still ready to leave behind their oppressive manner of governance. And I don't see Kim Jong-un suddenly saying he wants an election, or probably, let's have a unified Korea where we can go for elections. I don't think he would want to give up that region he has already held in a chokehold. So I don't know. I think North Korea stands to benefit economically because there's been a lot of crippling sanctions on them by the West, and if they can reunify with the South and they stay true to their peace accord, it will really help their economy, because a lot of people are starving. It's just that Chairman Kim Jong-un just doesn't care. As long as he is feeding fat and is going around with his propaganda of North Korea being a nuclear state, which to him projects him as a strong leader before his people. So even if they are hungry, they still stand him and still believes he's their leader. So I'm seriously skeptical about that unification. But North Korea stands to benefit a whole lot.
In what aspect? From the hunger thing, what other aspect? Because they take a look at themselves as the military might of the Korean Peninsula. So if they should sneeze, others will start catching cold.
Yes.
The South should benefit also. What does the South stand to gain?
The South stands to gain because ever since that war, families have been separated. People have had family members they've not seen in decades. People have had family members killed by Chairman Kim Jong-un. These are not hidden. He has had hundreds of thousands. His father before him, his grandfather before him, they've had hundreds of thousands of people killed. And then the simple fact that people can't cross the demilitarized zone from north to south and from south to north alone affects commerce in the area. So if there is a unified Korean peninsula, both sides stands to gain, at least, if not anything, the cross commerce between both countries, and the fact that people can finally get to reunite with their loved ones. There's been talks of folks who have been separated from their families for a very long time. You see some people crying on live TV, saying they show pictures of their family members they've never heard from, because Chairman Kim Jong-un makes sure that people from the north don't cross over. In fact, we saw a rare footage one time of a soldier, a North Korean soldier that was trying to defect from the north to the south. He was shot but finally made it, was taken to the US and all that. So the fact that family ties will be strengthened by the unification alone is enough respite for even South Koreans who are very open to unification, but like I said before, are very skeptical given the person of Chairman Kim Jong-un.
Oh, now you keep talking about China being the one to gain the most in this, because before you went for that summit, there was a meeting with the Chinese President Xi Jinping, and then when you returned a week after, there was also a meeting with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. What does China stand to gain in this? It's like they're so interested in North Korea.
China is very interested in North Korea because for a long time now, they've been trading partners with North Korea, and The fear alone of North Korea having this civil war or civil crisis or war in itself, if America decides now to, for example, do a regime change and Kim Jong-un is removed, regime change usually comes with a lot of destabilization. And if that region is destabilized, for example, Kim Jong-un is removed by force of a military action, you know, what usually would happen is that the allies or the superpowers in that area are going to have a refugee crisis in their hands, because a lot of folks are going to flee the country by virtue of hunger and, you know, so many things that will be happening post-war. A lot of people are going to run to the border of the Chinese people, who are also very conservative with their resources, because just like you said before when you were reading the world news, bringing in refugees costs a lot of money. So China doesn't want that. They just want to do their business with the world, make money, steal copyright and do their thing. So China don't want war in the Korean Peninsula. So they've been very, very attentive all through the process. The only thing they have always wanted is to have a say, probably through North Korea, influencing them to bring to the table what they want from the summit. And even without much effort, Trump conceded by saying that he's going to take away or he's going to remove US troops from the region, which China has never liked. And also the fact that tension between the North and South has dialed down is a win-win for China.
All right, but one country seems to be quiet in all this, Russia. Do you think this doesn't really concern them, or they're just playing the quiet country until when it's time for them to speak? Don't forget that one of the components of the missiles found in the war armament that North Korea tested was created by Russia. According to news and speculation, it was a Russian component.
Yes, Russia is a world power also in that region. And even President Vladimir Putin, during his State of the Nation address, sometime I think in February, hailed Kim Jong-un as a wise negotiator. And he was heaping praises on Kim Jong-un by virtue of his ability to drag America to a negotiating table. So I think they are watching closely, because they are also world players, and they've also been monitoring everything that is going on. So I think they know where to come in, they know what to do, but they are watching to see how everything plays out, and then they'll be able to place themselves in a vantage position to take advantage of the situation if the need be. Because Donald Trump is all over the map, he's doing so many things, and like I said before, his motives are not really clear. He's not clear on exactly what he wants. North Korea, they've not been good actors. So let's just watch and see. I think Russia is watching by the sideline, watching out for the loopholes and waiting to seize a vantage position if the opportunity presents itself.
All right, thank you so much, Owaifa Williams, for your wonderful analysis. Strong signal from a presidential director that will call it a wrap right now on the show. Well, you've heard him. Trump and Kim meeting, the impact of June 12th, not only Nigeria but North Korea and of course US. They had something very, very special that warranted global attention. The meeting of these two leaders, I don't see eyeball to eyeball for decades, but on June 12th they were able to meet, and many things were really settled, because it's like, a domino effect. Let's see if they'll be true to their words in really fulfilling those promises and the pact they signed on that June 12th. Once more, Owaifa, thank you so much for coming on today's show. I appreciate your coming. We'll do this again next week, Tuesday, God willing. Bye for now.